right, here I go again saying we are back. It is my default intro because I'm so excited to be back. This will be episode 84. 84. I am so happy and I like grin like the Grinch here whenever I say a new episode because it's a blessing every time I get to sit down and if it, with somebody who is willing to share their story. So if you're new here, before I introduce my fabulous guest, if you're new here, this podcast is essentially a place where we feature real people who tell true stories about how they have turned their life's adversity into an adventure, which I know if you are listening and you are human, if you're a dog, you have adversity too if you're hearing this. I don't know where that came from. That was random. But that's the podcast. But everybody goes through adversity, right? Some people have little things, big things. And so the goal of this podcast is to just create a space where we talk about it. So with that, I would like to gratefully introduce my next guest, Ali Shaw.
Hello, Bree. Hello, listeners. It's so great to be with you for lucky number 84.
84. And I
Yes.
love saying that. It's back in the day when I had episode 1, just dreaming a little dream. Here we are, right?
Yeah,
83
it's
episodes
incredible.
later. And
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. Well, it wouldn't be possible if people like you weren't willing to sit down and talk with me. So thank you. And here's my favorite part where I get to read about you a little bit in front of you. And my guests are like, oh gosh, here I get to hear about myself. So I'm going to do a little intro. And then what everybody loves is when I stop. And then my guest starts telling their story about adversity, right? And how they're getting through it. So, all right, a little intro to Ali before she shares her story. Ali, you are a Virginia born author, you are a motivational speaker, and you are a longtime Domino's franchise leader. Very cool. Part of a group that owns 17 locations. Okay, so we're going to have to talk about business. We're going to have to talk about that.
Sure.
Coolest part, your memoir, Chasing Tigers in the Dark, Life Lessons of a Fierce Survivor, was released in March 2022. And I would love to hear about this too. It's being re-released in an expanded second edition.
Yes.
Okay. I need to drink coffee to be ready for your amazingness here. I need to be ready. So congratulations on that, on
Thank
being
you.
an author, on being, I think more importantly, being a survivor of adversity.
Thank you.
And the coolest part is that you are willing and open and have already shared your story, both verbally and in a beautiful memoir.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So tell me about that.
Well, I'll start off by just saying that this conversation felt very fitting because I feel like when, I don't know, my breakdown that led to the manifestation of the book really came from a place where I had forgotten how to connect with joy. And so actually connecting with adventure felt a little bit more feasible, you know? And
Ooh.
then, but through adventure, right, we find purpose, meaning, connection, which are the foundation of joy. So I've always felt like adventure and joy are meant to coincide, meant to journey together. It's a marriage. So when I connected with you on Instagram, I just knew that we would have a phenomenal conversation because it really seemed like we were aligned in our thought processes with regard to how, I really believe that life's obstacles can spark the catalyst for our happily ever after. And that doesn't have to be like love related. That could be our happily ever after in our professional life with our parenting skills, all of those things. So yes, so I am so excited to tell you this story, and it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to know where to start.
Yeah, it is. I was saying before, just so you guys know, but behind the scenes, I was telling her, I'm like, we're probably going to need a part 2, and we're going to need,
Yeah.
because I feel the same. We have a connection where I'm like, wait a second, we have some stuff to collaborate on or something.
Yes,
So, yeah.
absolutely. When I was learning more about, the inspiration for why you started the podcast, it felt very, they might be different stories, but just like the emotion behind it, the passion behind it felt very similar.
Yeah.
You were telling me about how, a lot of this was leading you to try to be, the best possible parent for your children. And I don't know about you, girl, but the pandemic was a really like eye-opening time for me. All of our children, I know yours are younger, but my children were um, all consumed with, mobile learning. They were in their rooms, they were on devices, and so it
Mm.
left a lot of like quiet time for me, which wasn't always good.
Yes. It can be good and it can be disastrous at times.
Oh, yes. So for some reason, like all the triggers from, decades of loss and, just heartbreak, kind of the dam broke.
Ah,
And, my mother-in-law was going through cancer at the time. And I don't know whether it was like accessing the emotions of grief and uncertainty and fear and anxiety that kind of got me all stirred up with, the things that I had suppressed.
yep.
Because I don't know if you have this kind of experience. I'm a little older than you are, but I feel like my grandparents really modeled, that silent generation mandate of, we don't talk about hard things in public. We don't talk about our experiences from World War II. We go to church and pray about it, but we certainly don't express it openly.
Yes.
And so, from the time I was 18 years old, some really bad things started happening. In college, they tell you college is supposed to be the best time of your life, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I did not have that experience.
Neither did I.
Lot,
I get it. I
really?
get it. I get
Okay.
it. I get it. Yeah, because you have this big expectation. You're like excited, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, as a sophomore, I had all these big dreams. Like I was going to be an opera singer, and I already had like my husband chosen. I was going to be like a mom. I had all these big goals, right? So the man I thought I would marry was killed by a drunk driver. That I was
Oh,
diagnosed with cancer in my neck, which is, as a singer is not ideal.
oh my gosh.
And then they told me I would never have children. And so, like all of those things happening within, a couple of years, it just kind of it left me in this place of brokenness where I didn't really know like all the plans I had made for my life. And I was talking to this delightful millennial podcaster yesterday, and she was saying that she feels like her generation is all about making plans. I mean, we all want to make plans, and when those plans in every category of your life are snatched away and go up in flames, it's tough, but it's also an opportunity, right?
Yep. Mm.
So, and I won't tell you the whole story just because, then you wouldn't read the book. But
Give it, yes, because that's
um,
that's my next step is reading your book. So this is a preview.
oh, you're so sweet. Well, I'll just tell you, like that's kind of where it started for me. And the book was born out of 12 different traumatic experiences. And you're a Christian, I'm a Christian. Through that process, I really leaned into Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I really felt like there was a bigger purpose for all that loss. And
Yeah.
so I don't know. It's interesting. We have these encounters when we're going through adversity. And I was dating this man one time, and this was, I still didn't have hair. My hair was coming back in after chemo, and this man was wonderful in a lot of ways. But he said, "I'm really drawn to you because you're broken." And when I heard those words at first, I was like, what? I'm not broken. What are you talking about? But it really it drove me to do some soul searching on that, Bree. And I was able to reframe the idea of being broken. So you want to hear it?
Yes, please. Let me get out my notebook so I can
No.
I'll start as soon as we're done. I'll hang up and I'll be like, step number one.
Oh,
Yes.
you're so kind. So have you heard of Kintsugi before?
Is it the Japanese thing?
Yes,
Okay.
the
Yes.
Japanese art that repairs broken pottery by filling the cracks with gold epoxy. So, like when you think about that and you kind of imagine the cracks that we see, the seen and unseen scars, right, that we carry from our past. What if where the cracks are is where the light actually gets in instead of what shames us, right? Like, what if
Yes.
that's the opportunity to see the life lesson and to be able to pay that forward, right? And so I wouldn't necessarily say that I consider myself broken, but that comment created a lot of work and growth, honestly, for me. So sometimes, we encounter these folks and the first thing that they say can really piss us off, right? But then we're like, you know what? Thank you for that, because now I'm going to do the work and I'm going to find a way to flip the script and make this a positive connotation, right?
Mm. That's a beautiful, beautiful way of looking at it because when you say that, I think anyone listening immediately, maybe in their mind, if we're all like a little vase, a big, big, beautiful vase, they're like,
Right,
you see the cracks, like, okay, they went through this, they went through this, went through this. We know that. And then there's other cracks that nobody knows.
right.
And then usually it's like you see that vase and you're like, ooh, that's, oh, that gosh. But it's actually completely different.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Well,
And
thank
and,
you.
and I don't want to gloss over the fact that you survived cancer. I'm so sorry that that happened, that tragic loss.
Yeah.
And just that's a lot. And you were in your 20s?
Well, so I lost the boyfriend at 18 and
Oh.
then cancer came like 1920. Yeah. So it
So
was a
so
lot.
your whole foundation of everything was rocked.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know if you've ever thought about like the triple curveball, that superstition where they say
That's
bad
true.
things come in threes.
Yeah.
That's actually happened multiple times in my life. And honestly, as difficult as it is, I really do feel like that's why I wanted to write the book, because I feel like, with my upbringing, I felt like that's why I kind of had that experience, the breakdown during COVID, because things were just stacking up, right? One after another. And this book allowed me to provide the resources and, the playbook for how I was able to come through 12 different traumas that had been suppressed for decades. So sometimes, when something like that happens, it provides that spark we need to take action.
Yes. It's the
Mhm.
adversity. What is that quote? Adversity introduces like a man or a woman to themselves.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
almost like
beautiful.
you're kind of like, wait, this is a tragedy. What are you talking about? And you're like,
Right.
it's still a tragedy, whatever you're going through. It's but that you're stripped down so bare that you're like, who am I? Right? Because
Yeah.
you have no defense. Like it's almost like feels like you're just like, ah, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
continue. You're just sparking so many realizations as I go. So
Oh, well, you're
yeah,
so kind. Well,
yeah,
I think so. A lot of times people will say, well, what was like the big aha moment for you?
yeah,
And, it's funny. I told you about those first three experiences and
yeah.
just the feeling of loss, the feeling of uncertainty, chronic adversity, sorry, chronic anxiety, was kind of following me everywhere. But, it's funny because several years after I beat cancer, I actually got pregnant twice and carried two children without issue. They're perfect, healthy,
Yeah.
amazing adults now. And so sometimes, we are given this shock of, someone else determining what your future is going to look like, right? I thought, oh gosh, I'm never going to have children, and I'm never going to meet a man who will treat me the way this person did, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I had the children, and I ended up meeting my soulmate when I was like 35 years old. So, things happen and we have these doubts, and we're like, okay, my life is ruined. I'm never going to be the same. I might as well just like give up. And I feel like my story allows people to connect to hope, because it wasn't just one doctor, it was all the doctors. They're like, yeah, it's not happening. And so I think sometimes, when you just trust the process, believe, lean into your faith, find a method for healing, it can, bring the most amazing miracles that you never knew were possible.
Yeah.
So,
It's incredible. Well, and I hope people listening to this right now are realizing that you truly do know. I mean, you've seen and felt despair. And I
yeah,
think when you say 12 different events, you because adversity and despair, I think different events have different, I mean, sadness is sadness, and but like different events evoke different types, like some shocking events, some you have time to process,
yeah,
some they're different, right? Like
right.
adversity comes in different shapes and sizes. And so you have an interesting perspective, and I'm sure your book goes into it on like how you cope with all these different types, all that
Yes,
have a different way of bringing you to your knees, right?
absolutely. Yeah. I actually came up with a Tiger acronym for healing. So that's why we're releasing a second edition in
Ah,
March, because I had an experience in 2023 that really allowed me to finish a story that really felt very unfinished in 2022. And so it's the final chapter is about compounded grief. And then the grand finale, if you will, is the Tiger acronym connection with healing. A very multifaceted approach to healing. So it's been really exciting to be able to finally finish the story, because you know how that feels. It's like we're in the middle of a story, right? And we're like
yes.
not sure how it's going to end, and we don't want to leave the conversation before we know how it's going to end. So now I can provide that ending that I
Yeah.
feel is very timely.
Yes.
So yeah, it's
So
exciting.
so you had said you went through those three, your first of many adversity
Yes.
that comes along your path. Take me back to sort of that time. And again, please check out the show notes for all of the links to your book and everything that's coming. So check the show notes, but take me through at
Yeah.
a high level, sort of what comes next in your journey.
Well, I do need to provide some trigger warnings, because we do
Okay.
have sexual assault in this book,
Okay.
mental health struggles. So that's
Yeah.
important to note.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, it's funny. I I think that's why my faith has continued to grow over the years, because I felt like I had a greater purpose with my 12 different stories, if you will. Because they just kept happening, right, Bree? It's like, this can't be an accident. There's got to be a reason for this, right? So yeah, so college and graduate school, I continued to have adversity follow me. I had two sexual assaults during those times. One was a family member. It was just lots of, I felt like a target, honestly, like metaphorically and, realistically, I felt like a target. And
Mhm.
I felt a lot of shame. And I remember feeling during COVID, sitting there and thinking about the assaults. And I now have a blended family of six daughters and one son.
Mhm.
And I thought about the fact that none of my daughters knew anything about what I had gone through. And I thought about, what could this information do for them in the future to help them assimilate the behavior of a predator before becoming a victim? So it started there. I thought about their beautiful faces. I thought about them, venturing through this world with, all the hope and positivity that, that they could wear, and
Mhm.
just being unaware that there are things out there that could hurt them. So I thought my story, that's where it started. The sexual assault stories needed to be told because, it didn't just start with one event. It started with, emotional abuse. It started with, the diminishing of my confidence over time. And I wanted to be able to tell those stories because a lot of times as women, we can be experiencing emotional abuse for months before we even realize what's happening.
Yep.
So that's kind of where that started. I really just wanted them to know that, and I didn't want to carry the shame anymore. As survivors, we do not have to carry shame for our entire lives. There are ways to work through that. I found the most effective way to heal the shame was through EMDR therapy. Are you familiar?
I am about to start it. I've heard so much. Like my friend
Oh,
Omira was like, Brie, you have to. And I'm like, sign me up. So please tell me.
yay!
It's the only thing I haven't
Oh,
tried.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so for the listeners, EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it is a non invasive approach to resolving one trauma at a time by healing the brain with bilateral eye movements, which sounds a little scary. It sounds like hypnosis, but I assure you it is not hypnosis. It is you're very much present in the moment, but it allows you to take the negative belief that is associated with the trauma trigger and recondition that to a positive belief. So I think when you've been a victim of sexual assault or any kind of domestic abuse, you blame yourself. You're like, oh, I should have seen the signs before I was,
Yes.
involved with this person on whatever
100%.
level.
Yep.
And I just didn't want other survivors or victims to feel that way, depending on how they label themselves. I just
Yeah.
wanted them to see that, you know, you did the best that you could with the information that you had at the time.
Yes.
And the best way to move on from that is to, strategically heal that belief system. So,
That's a
yeah.
great line, to strategically heal that belief system, because it's almost like it can feel like you're kind of programmed into thinking everything's your fault, you're this, right?
Yes.
And you have to, like, love helps and support from family, but you, like, actually there's some brain stuff you have to
Yes.
recondition, right?
Absolutely. And that's where the I've movement comes in.
Yeah.
You actually have this feeling of euphoria after the eye movement part of it is
Mm,
complete.
yeah.
It's hard work, Brie, it
Oh yeah,
is,
you have
but
to look at it, right? You have to look at things.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
you do. You have to be ready, and you have to pick a practitioner that you trust. It has to be somebody that you connect with on multiple levels so that you can really be honest about what happened.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure. Okay,
So,
no, definitely. I'll put some links to EMDR in the show notes as well, because it's, people are looking for resources and they're like, "Tell me, I'll try it."
yeah,
So thank you for that.
absolutely. Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a big part of it. I can actually go through the steps of the Tiger acronym if you're interested.
Please, like I said, I know it's so hard to fit everything in one episode. So anything that comes to mind about your story that you think would help people, absolutely.
Yeah. And a lot of this is on my website too, some of the resources. But
Sure.
so Tiger, Tiger. So we start with T, which is trust your intuition. And so that can relate to decision making, safety. But for me, it was more about passion and purpose. Because, passion's what gets us out of bed in the morning. And even when we have this major hardship that we're walking through, if we can connect to something that we're passionate about, I think it allows us to continue to move forward. So, my passion, from even my teenage years was helping other people. And so, it's looked different in different seasons of life. As an opera singer, obviously, it looked very different than being, an author and an advocate for hope. But,
Sure.
just that feeling, that energy that comes from knowing that you're breathing life into that passion is huge for healing.
Yeah.
Um, I is invest in yourself. So that's therapy, right? We talked about the EMDR, but I've tried exposure therapy, talk therapy. There's a lot of different therapies out
Mm,
there. And, one works for some, another one might work for another person. So,
sure.
you just gotta, trial and error.
Yep.
G stands for grow your character.
Mm,
So it's interesting. We did own a pizza business. We've since sold that business, so
okay.
we're retired from that. Thank goodness. It's nice to be able to have a little more time.
Life be a little
But
busy. Yeah.
yes, yes, yes. So grateful, but yes, it was time.
Yeah.
But we had this thing with our Domino's franchise where we noticed that a lot of our customers would order pizza on their worst day, right? So you went through a breakup, or God forbid you got fired, or something bad happened, and I'm gonna go get comfort in a box, right?
Yes.
So we would always train our team, to really kind of look for those opportunities, right, to provide a little more kindness. And that really starts with authenticity. So we put out like a kindness initiative that I had learned from a business owner that had learned it from her church, and it's called the Triple Filter. It's very beautiful. It basically just nips gossip in the bud, and so
Ooh.
it's something that every human has to work on it. We encounter gossip on the daily. Am I right?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
But this kindness initiative allows you to, like, once somebody says something to you about another human being, before you respond, you would ask yourself, is it true, is it kind, is it necessary? And if you can't answer yes to all three questions, you could walk away or change the subject, or if you're really brave, call the person out.
Yep. Yep.
So it just makes you feel better, though, right? Like,
It
it ups
does.
your level of professionalism. It
It
makes your
makes,
empathy feel
yes.
more authentic. So that's
Yes.
G.
Okay.
E is exercise self-care. So in the book and then on my website, I offer a lot of different options for self-care within 6 different categories. So I think you got to put on your own oxygen mask first, right, before you can help others. And then finally, R is reinvent yourself often. So
Mm, I love
yeah,
that.
that there's an interesting story behind that. I don't know how much time we have if you want to hear another
Yeah.
story, but
Go. I want all the stories. And what I love about, by the way, when you went through that whole acronym, it's um it's exciting because if you think about life that way, right? If you focus on those areas, you have a pretty good chance of like doing pretty well and feel, which is like feeling good about yourself and over time, right? Like
right,
and I love that you're providing like strategy, tactical way, like there's a way to heal,
right.
and you are a living example of it, and you're now guiding people through it. That's
Wow.
really cool.
Well,
That's
thank you. And the same right back at you, sister. You're
well,
doing it
hey,
too.
no, I just push record and everybody does the magic. But no, it's like
Oh,
what you say about turning those awful things, those 12 things into like God turns all things for good. It
yeah.
doesn't mean that those things are still what they are, but look what's come out of them. It proves what you're saying. Even when you're going through a crisis, if you have this thing that you're excited about, it's
Yeah,
it it's really saves you.
it does. It keeps you moving. That the biggest thing we've got to try to do is keep moving, because once we
Stop.
banish ourselves to solitude,
Oof.
that's when depression sneaks in, and it's a lot harder to get back to where you need to be.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so they can find more information obviously in your book, on your website, about you go all into that whole acronym of
Yes.
everything.
Absolutely.
And you were saying there's another story, and again, we're kind of touching on a lot of things, but
Yes.
whatever feels natural to kind of share. You were saying there's another story related to that, of that last one, right? Reinvent yourself often.
Yes. It's kind
Yeah.
of a funny one. So,
Yes.
So I am currently in my second marriage right now,
Okay.
and we've been together for 15 years, and it is wonderful, and
Yeah.
he is definitely my soulmate. But that experience of losing, that first boyfriend kind of put me in this mind cycle of okay, well, the one is gone. The one is no longer an option. So when I met my first husband, I kind of mistook um, common uh, interests as, you know, a reason to get married, I guess.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of blunt, but
Okay.
I think he would have said this too. I think we both settled, honestly. And I would never regret it because, he led me to my being a mother and to having my
Yes.
two children with him. So I will
Sure.
always be incredibly thankful for that. But
Of course.
it wasn't a good marriage and it was complicated and it ended. And when it
Mhm.
ended, I was an opera singer and a music teacher, and I had to move to Virginia from North
Mhm.
Carolina and move back in with my parents. And I had two preschoolers in tow, and there were no opportunities in our rural town for an opera singer or a music teacher. Like there was nothing.
Sure.
So reinvent yourself often. Here's the story. So I had to cast a wide net, and I received a couple of offers from like an eye doctor's office. And anyway,
Mm.
nothing was a good fit because of, the schedule with my kids. But so I got this offer to be the client services director for an intellectual property law firm. It was
Okay.
absurd.
You're like,
Absurd.
sure. Sounds good.
Sure, let me do my
Time.
best.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Brie, I knew nothing about law. It was just the craziest thing, but it was divine inspired. Like a really close friend of mine had made the introduction.
Yep.
And, they weren't hiring me because I was an expert at copyright or patents. They hired me because I was good with people. People are my
Mm.
passion. And
Yes.
so, I ended up loving that job even more than like the opera career. It was just so cool to be able to have those daily interactions with people and hear their stories and,
Yeah.
their struggles. And it was the gift of perspective, right? Because we all have these stories, we all have these losses, and it was very healing during an uncertain time.
Mm.
And that job led me to my husband, to my soulmate. So, you just never know where the reinvention is going to lead you.
Yes.
Trust
That's
the process.
yes. Well, what's
Yeah.
interesting, like, I think that's so, like, you would never think, like, okay, what am I? I'm a singer. I'm going to a law firm. What?
Yeah.
But within a law firm, I just had this moment. It's all stories of
Yes.
people going through stuff that's legally, like, they're going through like crises a lot of times, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you're not usually in a
Absolutely.
lawsuit for like joy and good things, right? Like, it's
That's
not
right.
it's usually a challenge. If correct me if I'm wrong.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's a mix of struggles, so conflicts, and then the other part of it was like being able to help people with their business planning. I always had this,
Ah,
interest in business. So, my husband was the franchisee for Domino's, and then when he invited me to join him in that journey, it was an entire new skill set, newly discovered skill set that I never knew that I was interested in.
yeah.
So,
If somebody's listening right now and they're like, something came up in their mind, or they're like, oh, I want that job so bad, but I'm too afraid, or they're maybe sitting with an opportunity that they're like, I don't think I can do this. Do you remember what propelled you through those moments of, I don't have the skill set, but I'm going to try? Like, what did you say to yourself when those moments of like, what are you doing here? You're not qualified. Like, the enemy, whoever's voice, you're like, wait, why is someone being so mean to me in my head? Like,
yeah.
and I'm sure your book talks about how to work through that, but what comes to mind? Do you remember what you would say to yourself in those moments?
I think I just said I'm doing this to support my family,
There you go.
and I need to go and do the best job that I possibly can and show my value, honestly. It's just because I
Mm,
didn't have a law degree didn't mean that I didn't have value. So I needed to see the value in myself and
there
be
you go.
able to lean into that. Yeah.
It's a completely different perspective. Someone who has struggled with imposter syndrome and like who's breaking out of it, it's like you come in the room differently. Not I'm better
Yeah.
than you, but no, I have value. Everyone in the room has value. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay to know that you have value.
It absolutely is. Yes. definitely. I mean, I won't say I didn't make mistakes. I'm sure there were days where they're like, "What are you doing?"
You're like, I don't have a law
But
degree. How am I supposed to know that?
right. But it's yeah, I'm just really thankful that that opportunity came around because otherwise I might have had to go back to North Carolina, back to my marriage, and that would have been bad for everybody involved. So,
So
yeah.
say yes to the seemingly out of the blue opportunities that might be divine and probably are,
Yes.
right? Like, because
Yes.
you don't always get what I'm learning. You pray for something and then something comes up and you're like, this isn't what I prayed for. And God's like, just say yes. It's coming.
Y-
You don't understand the whole point.
yes.
Like, we want the
Absolutely.
exact thing we prayed for, but it might come in a different package, right?
I mean, that's exactly right. That's the exact like takeaway from that story. Because, my kids ended up happier. They went
Ah,
to better schools. My husband's children are around the same age, so they all grew up together. And you just never
wow.
know the blessings that are tied to an
Yes.
experience that seems absurd, right? You know.
So true.
You
So
got to
true.
trust the process for sure. As difficult as it is, and I think your point about prayer is huge because sometimes, these opportunities, they fall into our laps and we're like, this is not what I prayed for, but it could very well be the opportunity you didn't know you needed,
Can you imagine God's going, oh my gosh, here she goes again. I'm sending her 14 things. She said no to all of them, but literally, and now she's praying that I haven't answered her prayers.
Yeah. There you go. Absolutely.
So the reinvention is not only an adventure and leads to good things, it's actually a tool for like surviving. You have to reinvent yourself when you, especially when your back's against the wall. Like, you need to be open to
Absolutely.
new ideas when you're in a
You do.
corner,
Well,
right?
and see, that's where the passion piece comes in, Bree, because we are discovering passions we didn't even know we had. I read a statistic recently that less than 20% of the population knows what their passion truly is. So what an opportunity to be discovering that. And for me, I really thought back to my history. Like I thought back to being in high school and we had this program called peer counselors where you had to go, and obviously this would never happen now because there's so many, big
Times have
red
changed.
flags. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't be weighing in on other people's mental health crises by any means, but
Yeah.
back in the
But
90s it was a
hey,
little
we didn't
different.
know.
Yeah, but I remember being a peer counselor and again, hearing other people's stories and it just lit this fire where I just really wanted to, be part of, a solution to something. I didn't know what it was at the time. My childhood was very happy. I really didn't have a whole lot of adversity, but man, it hit
It
with a lot of force in college. So there you go.
yes. Ah,
Yeah.
that's I understand that feeling. Well, and you talk about the passion thing. If someone's listening going, "Yes, Ali, I want to find my passion. I don't know what to do." And like, how do I know if something's my passion? One thing, and I would love to hear your reaction on this, and I know your book is, I'm sure, talks about it. When you, like, for me, when I'm talking to guests or when I'm editing little reels that are fun for me, even if no one looks at them, I'm like, oh, like, I get into the flow state, right? Where
Yeah.
I lose track of time. I don't know how long I've been sitting at the coffee shop. I forget that I'm like, wait, oh wait. Like every interview I'll walk out and I'm like, what time is it? Where are the kids? Like I don't even know what Ryan's watching them, but I go into my own little flow. And that's how I know that, like, talking to people, creating, broadcasting, I get into this like flow state.
Right.
So for me, that's how I've kind of figured that is probably my passion. What
Yes.
do you think about finding it? How do you know if it's your passion?
So I don't think you could have said it any more beautifully than you
Oh,
already did. I
okay, thank
think
you.
trying to connect to that flow state. So I've always said we know we're not passionate when we're procrastinating. So
Oh.
like when I used to prepare for an opera role, I would sometimes procrastinate going to the piano and learning my lines or, whatever. And I thought, gosh, that's not passion. If I'm procrastinating, it's not passion. So I really, it's funny. I worked for an opera company, and what I realized was I ran this program for young professionals where we were trying to get them to connect to the arts as a whole to try
Mhm.
to create like more meaning and purpose in their lives, right?
Yeah.
These were people in DC that were just, workaholics. They weren't really connecting to anything outside of work. And so that experience was covered in passion, right? Because it was all about helping people to make their lives better.
Mm.
Now, maybe my singing helped somebody's life become better, but that seems so small in comparison to this big picture idea that I was searching for, you know?
Yes.
So,
So it's you when it sounds like you have the same feeling where it's when you lose. Oh my gosh, the procrastination thing is blowing my mind. Sorry, when you said that, I was like,
oh, I'm so glad. Yay.
I am a recovering procrastinator,
Oh, me too.
but I will tell you this, not with the podcast. I
See,
just go.
you love it.
I literally, they're like, my family will make fun of me. They'll be like, stop making reels, and I'm like, okay, all right, just one more, or they know that I'm like, they're like, okay, you're doing your podcast, and I'm like, okay, yes, just give me 1 second, and then and they love it, but they know I can't stop,
Yeah.
and whereas other things, I'm like, oh, that, okay, that
Yeah.
just a light bulb went off for me, so thank
It's
you for
isn't
that.
it so empowering though? Like just it's such a small thing. But how many things in the course of a week, a month do we procrastinate over? Whether it's things that are for practical everyday life or
Yeah,
something that's how we make our livings. There's some aspect of our jobs that we're passionate about, and then there's
yes,
other pieces that, we'd be happy if we didn't have to do that part. So
what,
trying to like um, trying to figure out the flow state and be able to transfer that to different areas of our life, right?
yes. And I
Yeah.
think probably why I don't procrastinate, I'm like literally having, you're changing my life right now. I don't
Oh.
procrastinate for the podcast is because my brain's like, you're about to get into flow state in three,
Yes.
2, 1. Whereas the other things, I'm like, you're about to feel dumb. And you, right?
Oh, girl, I
Like, even though you
totally
have to
feel
do it,
that.
you're about to feel real stupid for 5 minutes when you start this.
Yes. Yes.
Um, uh,
Absolutely.
but perhaps I think when you're doing something that feels authentic, you don't have anxiety. Like I don't have anxiety about it because I don't have to like be anything else.
Yes.
Oh my
Absolutely.
gosh, Allie, I can't.
Absolutely.
You're my new therapist too, by the way.
No, no, no,
No,
no.
no, but
The
I mean like,
EM.
no, I mean like you just you're saying. See, this is the part about. There's something about the way you're sharing this that like light bulbs go off for people where you're like, but wait, what? The way you're wording it, the way, so that's the beauty of storytelling, right? It like evokes something in someone where they go, what's that quote where it's like, wait, you too, I'm not the only one. Oh, okay. So okay, I need to collect myself now. That was a lot of realizations for me.
Well, it's just great to feel that human connection through experience, right? Like we've both had
Yeah.
that flow experience, and then we've both experienced the monotony of procrastination and just like how it kind of sucks part of your soul away.
It
It's
does.
tough.
So
Yeah.
the thing, would you say like, what have you learned about that? Like, obviously, if you can if you can spend time on your passion, that's really what it, it's what you're called to do,
Yeah.
whether you know it or not yet.
Yeah, it is. But I think there's always discoveries in
Okay.
that process,
Yeah.
right? So through the last 2 years of your podcast, I'm sure you've had like a million aha moments.
Oh,
And it's helped you to maybe streamline your way to, your passion. Because when
Yes.
we're pursuing the passion, we show up as our best version, right? We're
Right.
we're more energized, we're more authentic.
Yeah.
So it's a journey, it's an adventure.
It
So
is. It is. And it show I think once you identify what you love doing, like for my niece, she has a bracelet business and she's 15 and she's at school
awesome.
and like her mom helps her with a lot of the business stuff and it's just like communal and she'll do orders, but she gets into flow state.
Yeah.
And then she gets into flow state with making these cards that are elaborate. And then she gets into flow state when she's on the lacrosse field. And I'm like, ooh, she likes to go, like, I'm like, go to design school, like, go
Yeah.
or start your own business. Like, I'll help you. Like, I'm like, I see her face and the way she gets. I'm like, oh, you love that. Like, you're a creator of something.
And she's only 15.
Oh my
Like, what
gosh.
a gift to figure it out that early, right?
Totally. Totally. And then
Yeah.
there's people who figure it out later. Like I mean here's the thing, it's never too late though. Like it sounds cliche,
Yeah.
but even if you're hearing this right now and you can be like this could be the day that you take the first step towards doing that thing that you love doing.
Yeah. Because I think about your experience, and you said when you first started the podcast, it was a little bit scary, right?
Oh. Oh, I was like what am I doing? This is
But
crazy, but I
the
love it.
but because you loved it, because you knew it was your passion, that overshadowed the fear, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think that's the place as humans. We're such people pleasers, and we fear that we're not enough, or that we're going to put ourselves out there and we're going to fail. But if passion is truly driving these new projects, like how can we truly fail? It
Yeah.
was meant to be. It was meant to be. So
Totally. And with all of your like writing your book, being a franchise owner, there's always the possibility of quote unquote failure. But like isn't
yes,
creating something enough? Like
yes,
what if I put out a podcast originally and two people listen to it? Why is that not good? Do you know what I mean? Like I you did it. And then if people listen, bonus,
well,
right?
and think about what those two people gained from what you had to say. Maybe you changed their entire lives, those two people.
Right.
That is magic right there.
Right. We get so hyper focused, I think, on like quantity, volume. And while in
Yes.
certain businesses, of course, you need that. Like you have a people to pay and like big, I'm not a business, I'm learning, um, but when you're starting your own thing, like creating, I think was it some guy said, was it Rick Ross, some hippie guy that was brilliant was like, you're creating the art, whether it's a music, whether it's a writing in your journal, like whatever you want to do or create, that's enough. The
Yeah,
creation itself.
agreed.
And I'm like, when I heard that, I was like, it is? Oh, yeah, it is. It is. Why am I looking outside? You know?
Yeah.
So,
It takes a lot of bravery, Bree, to put yourself out there and to be vulnerable and to be authentic. And
yeah.
my experience the last, 3 or 4 years being on the road, and, I would be in these rooms with, 75% were men who were, 60, 70 at times. And it was so hard because they weren't ready for the message. But
Uh,
just because their body language said they weren't ready for the message doesn't mean that they didn't internalize part of it and grow from the experience. So we have to put
ooh.
ourselves out there, even though it's difficult and it might feel like we don't reach anybody in a day. We're reaching people.
Mhm.
Whether they admit it or not, we're reaching people. And you have to keep doing it for the greater good.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I was literally just picturing you in a room, like a big boardroom or wherever that was, and like where you're just like, some rooms you're like, okay, I'm feeling the vibe. People are nodding, and they're like, and you're like,
Yeah.
cool. You're like, I can relax, cool. And then within, you're like, I'm not feeling it, still not feeling it. Well, here I am. So that doesn't mean they didn't take the message.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
really good point. They might be like,
They,
you're like, you're still hearing me. You're still hearing me.
yeah. That's exactly right. Yeah, it's It's a lot though. It takes a while to get there. And that's why, I really I relate our experiences because of what you just said about maybe two people listen to the first episode, but those two people, think about what you did for them with that message.
Totally. And it's like it's it's that human connection of realizing that like anything that you feel called, I feel like you feel called to express it.
Yeah,
You should express it. You should
right.
express it. Cause like, and then if you feel resistance where you're like, oh, I don't know, then you definitely should. Then you definitely
Yes.
should. Oh, and this is, you wouldn't have reckoned 3 years ago. I'd be like, you definitely shouldn't. Don't say it.
Yeah,
Now I'm like,
I
you
know.
definitely should. It's crazy how you can change.
Yeah, it is. Well, and I think about my parents, right? When I
Oh,
first told them about this book project, I was bracing myself, Bree. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're gonna say, 'Don't you dare publish this,' because I talked about a family member in that book that changed the dynamic of part of our family." And it was the opposite. They were like, "This is beautiful. Do it. We fully support you." And
wow.
these are two people that, were more comfortable with a private existence, not sharing the family business. And so if they could get on board, it gave me a lot of hope, only because of, how they were raised, they're wonderful
Sure.
people. But if someone with that background can get on board and be, open to a difficult message, then we have to be brave and share it.
Yeah. That's a beautiful
Definitely.
point. Give people the chance to say yes, even if you like they surprised you.
Yeah,
Kudos to them
absolutely.
because generationally same. Like it's that's really cool that they were able to open their mind to that.
Yeah,
That's really
I
cool,
know.
you
It
know?
wasn't it I mean we've always had a close relationship,
Yeah.
but I just, oh my gosh, Brie, I respected the hell
Oh,
out of them. I just thought they
relief.
were so
Oh.
amazing to be able to grow in that moment because it was a lot.
You
Yeah.
know, I can relate in that my podcasting journey, I've shared some stuff that like isn't, it's not great, like, or it doesn't, no, it's just not like fun to talk about.
Yeah.
And both my husband, my mom, my dad, they're like, Brie, you do you, boo. Like,
Yeah.
my mom's like,
Love it.
she goes, I'm 75 years old. You think I care what people think now? And I'm like, yes. And I'm like, but she's grown.
Yeah.
She used to. And like we all used to, I used to. It's
Yeah.
hard to not care. But then when you get to a point where I respect everybody's opinion, but it doesn't stop me from like saying what I need to say.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. There's so much freedom in that too, like the fact that we didn't have to wait to be 75 before we said, okay, this is more important than what other people are going to say about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's huge.
Wow. I mean, if anyone listening has something that it's even just having those conversations with a friend of being like, "Hey, you know what you said the other day, it kind of bothered me and I've been like a little resentful about it, and so I figured can we just get versus being like,
Yeah,
like I'm just
writing them
gonna send
off or
yeah,
whatever.
or like
Yeah,
I'm just gonna like have anxiety and for me even just confronting things, I think like in the spirit of telling your story, you're gonna have to confront things that maybe aren't great, but better to confront because then you can move past it and clear what's there. It's there already,
agreed.
right?
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
there. Um, as a writer, when you were writing this book, for anyone who's kind of thinking about, I know my last guest, she's like, I'm starting to write a book, and I love hearing when
Oh,
people are
yay.
like starting. She just lost her son a few months ago, and so she's
Oh,
like
gosh.
processing, and so she's like, I'm writing a book.
Yeah,
I'm like, good for you. I said, come back when you write it. Um,
yeah.
tell me about if anyone is like, I don't know if I could do it. How did you start? Was it like sitting down and just writing, or take me through that?
I think I always enjoyed writing, even from college. I was always
Yeah.
writing like little stories.
Cool.
But because I had this big block of time during COVID, right? A lot of
Mm,
people wrote books during COVID.
yes.
Um, I don't know. It's like one story. I just started small. I started with one story. So each
Yeah.
story is a chapter. And
Ah,
so starting like that, like approaching it like one short story at a time, made it feel less overwhelming.
great, great idea.
And I didn't think of it like, Brie, I wasn't, the whole time I wasn't thinking, okay, I'm going to send this to a publisher and they're going to publish it. I was just thinking of it from strictly the therapeutic value. So I'm going to get all these feelings out and process these feelings and share the life lesson that was accompanied by the experience. And then if God wants it to have wings beyond that, then I'll find a place. And
Beautiful.
so that was the mindset, like not trying to
Right it.
strong arm it. Yeah, just being
Beautiful.
open to the process. So,
Sounds like a great way to approach anything in life, actually.
yeah.
And but a beautiful for any aspiring like who are like feel that I feel like there's a pull to write when you want to when you're a writer, you just feel the pens there and you're like, I must write on a napkin or whatever, or I must write.
Yes.
If you feel that pull, just follow it and like don't try to make like you're saying, just let it out and then what's to be, it'll take shape on its own, I feel like, you know,
Yes.
or people can
That's
help
exactly
you
right.
people can help you to have shape it, right?
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
that's awesome. I love that. I love that because it just gives you a place to start. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. Everything wasn't done in 5 hours. We're in a very like instant gratification society. We get
Yes.
this there. We order it off Amazon, and then we get this there. Then it's there, and it's like for someone who's hyper, I'm like, just slow down,
Yes.
take it a day at a time,
Me
and let
too.
things unfold. I'm,
Right. And we learn a lot through the experience too, right, Brie? Like the experience of writing the story, the experience of having a conversation about, a common shared experience. There's I don't know, it just really fills us up when we allow ourselves to be in the moment and not just be looking at the finished product. We're
yes,
fully focused on the finished product and we miss the whole, experience.
yeah.
So,
It's almost like get into flow state over and over and it'll figure itself out.
yes, it's
Just
all about
go
flow
do the
state.
thing. If you just keep getting into flow state, you'll look up and you'll have whatever you're supposed to have created. It'll be created.
That's exactly right.
I mean,
Yes.
it's wild. It's wild when you think about anything kind of creative, writing a podcast, starting a business. You don't just
Yes.
have 17 franchises in 1 second. Like you just
Right.
right? I mean, you learn and you build, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a process for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, and I love the title. I love the title of everything that Chasing Tigers in the Dark, Life Lessons of a Fierce Survivor.
Thank you.
You know why? It's there's a lot in that title. The dark, the lessons, right? I love the word fierce because
Yeah.
you kind of there's a softness and a gentleness and a vulnerability in sharing your story. However, correct me if I'm wrong. You got to have a little bit of tenacity to get through some stuff in life.
Right. I mean, that's why I chose the title. It was the bravest image I could imagine, like facing our predators in the dark,
Oh,
right? Like just using our voices no matter what and providing that story for someone that needs to hear it who's still caught in the eye of the storm.
yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Gosh, we're
So,
coming up on, I think this might be a beautiful way to start to put a bow on it. I always am like sad.
yeah.
I don't want to stop. But um,
Yeah.
as I love, I'm having the image of just whatever someone's going through in life, there's something that you're facing in the dark and just know that you're not alone, right? And I want to give you the
Absolutely.
opportunity as we close this. Is there anything in addition to please go check out Allie's book, her website, her Instagram? You can get to know her and all the beautiful things you're working on and that are in the works for 2026. What would you like to leave our listeners with knowing that they can follow you on your journey as well? Any words to close us out here?
Yeah, Bria, I just would say, you've got to find your community and realize that other people's stories are providing the gift of perspective. So whether it's my story or the stories that you're highlighting on your podcast,
Yeah.
there's a lot of hope that can come out of those discoveries. So just
Mm,
keep moving, keep listening to those stories.
beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Allie. And I can't thank you enough for reaching out, for sharing your story, for being vulnerable. I know that it's going to change somebody's day, somebody's life. And now, as I tell every guest, you will be sitting on my shoulder for the next few days as I think
Oh,
about all the nuggets that I got from that, about procrastination, about storytelling, just survival. And I just wanted to thank you because I feel like
oh,
I'm already looking at things differently.
well, the pleasure was all mine. I really enjoyed our conversation. And thank you for the beautiful gift that you're giving to the world with your podcast. It's lovely.
Hey, well, I will learn to accept a compliment and say you're welcome.
Love it.
And
You
think I'm
should.
like, and I'm like, that was really hard to do. No. And again, guys, tune in. You've already heard this episode, but check out the show notes where you can buy Allie's book. I know I will be buying it. And until next time, I would love to have you back um,
Yes, would
to
love that.
talk about your next adventure.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. You too.